Hey guys, today I'll be showing you how to kill the Penance King. I'll only be showing you the healer's point of view, but no matter what role you're playing, you need to understand what the healer is doing, because the healer has the most important role during the king kill. Before I begin the guide, I have to mention that the only requirement is that you bring your highest level ranged weapon, or your most accurate ranged weapon. You don't have to bring range specifically, but it does make your life a lot easier. So I'm going to be breaking down the kill into two sections. The first section is actually making the flamethrowers, which you only have to do once. And the second section is using the flamethrowers to kill the king, which you need to do at least 3 times, but you might have to do it more than 3 times depending on how many times your team messes up. So the way the flamethrowers work is similar to the way that the Omega Egg works when you're killing the Penance Queen. One player from each role has to craft parts for the flamethrower and then deposit them at the deposit point on the west wall. Once all the parts are deposited, the deposit point will turn into a collection point, and then you can take the flamethrower from it. For the healer, you have to collect a bucket of acid after you make the king vomit, which I'll show you how to do in a second. And for every other role, you basically have to wait for the healer to be done with their job, and then your parts should be automatically on the ground if the healer did their job properly. For this next part, I'll be showing you the healer's point of view. So if you're not the healer, your role is going to be a little bit different, but you should still watch it because it's important to understand what the healer does so that you can do your role effectively. After the monsters are dead for the wave, you should run to the west wall and use the bait dispenser. You only need 5 meat to kill the Penance King, but I like to take 10 in case I mess up. This meat is different from the meat that you get from the beginning of the wave on the healer dispenser, so make sure you take it. Once you grab the bait, as a healer you should run to the center of the room. As every other role, you should stay on the far east side of the room until the healer's done doing their job. This is because the healer will be tanking the Penance King for the first part of the fight. Once the king spawns, make sure he's attacking you and then lure him to the healing pool. The king will attack you for 1/4 of your HP every time it hits you for this first phase. You should be able to out-heal his hits if you use the pool every 2 attacks. Keep taking the hits and eventually the king will have a message pop up above its head that says, "The hunger consumes me, I must feed." At this point you want to drop the bait and move 1 step away from it so the king can eat it. The king will vomit a puddle of acid and then there will be a bucket on top of it. You need to pick up the bucket and use it on the pool of acid. At this point in the clip I realized that I forgot ammo for the kill, so if you find yourself in my situation, you can still get the king kill. You'll just have to use Tuska's Wrath and Sacrifice if you have those abilities. If you don't have those abilities, unfortunately it's going to take you a very long time for the kill and it might just be worth restarting. Anyways, gather the acid from the pool, and you'll have to repeat this process 4 more times. If you're not the healer at this point in time, then basically you just have to wait and hope that they don't die. As the healer, one of the things that you can do while you're baiting the king is to attack him. This should make him drop a scroll that you can pick up and use later for the second part of the fight. Once you've collected all 5 buckets of acid, there will be other components on the ground that your team members can loot and craft into their parts of the flamethrower. These parts will be in the same place that the king vomited each time. So if you're the healer right now, you should signal your team that you're done baiting the king, and they should run over to the healing pool to make their parts as soon as they can. You also need to keep the king away from your team members while they do this, and deposit your 5 buckets of acid in the deposit point on the west side of the map. At this point in time, if you're not the healer, then you should run over to the healing pool and pick up the parts that have appeared on the ground. You don't have to worry about if they're the right parts or not because you will only be able to see the parts that are specific to your role. Make sure you have all 5 of them and then run back to the east side of the room. If you're an attacker and there are 2 attackers on the team, make sure you communicate with the other attacker so that only one of you is doing this. You only need 5 parts, even when there are 2 attackers. On the east wall there is a vent and there's an anvil, and you have to use these items that you just collected on one of these things. It's different for each role, but it's not that hard to figure out. Once you've collected all 5 of these items, hug the north wall and run west to the deposit point. Once everybody has deposited their items, you can collect a flamethrower from the deposit point, and the fight will move on to the next stage. If you are the healer, you need to continue luring the king until everyone is done with their part. Once everyone has collected a flamethrower, the rest of the fight is the same for every role, except if you are the healer, you're still responsible for healing the other players to keep them alive. Before you can attack the king with a flamethrower, each person has to obtain a scroll from the king and read the scroll in the order that's displayed on the top of the interface. To get the scroll, you have to attack the king with a normal weapon. do not equip your flamethrower for this part. You have to attack the king and land a hit on him. Although you won't deal any damage, you will still splash until you get the message that says you cannot deal any damage to the king with conventional weapons, and then your scroll will appear on the ground. The best way to do this is to juggle aggression between your team members. So if the king is currently attacking you, you shouldn't try to obtain your part of the scroll. Instead, you should lure him away so that your other team members can get their parts. And if you're done getting your part of the scroll, then you should try to lure the king away so that the people who have not gotten their parts of the scroll can obtain it. During this time, the king will also summon king spawns that will explode if they're next to you, and they will also explode if someone kills them and you're next to them. So try to avoid these. As soon as you get your scroll part, you should inspect it and check the order of the scroll. If your scroll is next, you need to read it as soon as possible. Once everybody has read their scrolls, there will be a message that pops up above the king, and he will be vulnerable to flamethrowers for only a few seconds. You need to equip your flamethrower as soon as possible and attack him as soon as possible. The longer you wait, the more likely it is you'll have to do an extra phase to kill the king. Once you have equipped the flamethrower and you're attacking the king, use the escape ability to move away from the king. This will keep you attacking, but it will help you avoid the earthquake attack that the king uses right after it finishes the phase. Eventually the king will move, and you'll have to repeat the process of obtaining the scroll, chanting it, and attacking the king 2 more times to kill the king. Each time you do this, the king will increase its damage when it hits you. The second time you do this, the king will kill you in 3 hits, and the third time you do this, the king will kill you in 2 hits. Additionally, if any of your team members were too slow to attack the king with a flamethrower, you might have to do a 4th phase. The damage will not increase from a 3rd phase, but it just is inconvenient, and it can be completely avoided if everybody just attacks on time. So that's it for my guide on the Penance King. Let me know in the comments if I've missed anything. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you in the next one.